My name is Marty McShay, and I'm going to be talking today about preparing for emergencies in healthcare settings. So, the Joint Commission and the federal government have created initiatives to help prepare and manage healthcare organizations to handle emergencies. Um, Congress they've issued this Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA, to coordinate relief efforts. During this presentation, I'm going to be talking about types of emergencies, hospital preparedness for emergencies, staff utilization in emergencies, and then a couple other additional information and tidbits. Types of emergencies, there are two types: natural disasters and man-made or intentional disasters. Natural disasters are environmental. Location really determines what it is and how to prepare for these emergencies. For example, like coastal towns will prepare for flood disasters, whereas the Midwest or the plains will prepare for potential tornadoes. And then man-made disasters are just that. They're caused by humans, could be intentional or accidental. And then in addition to the type, there's also disasters are also categorized levels 1 through 3, with level 1, local response should be able to take care of it. Level 2 would require a regional response. And then level 3 is state or even national assistance would be required. Here's a table from the textbook that gives some examples of disasters, both natural and man-made, which you can read over there. An additional man-made disaster or emergency would be that's really become a threat in recent years would be cybersecurity or cyber attacks. This can cause, of course, patient information or even whole computer systems to become disrupted, which causes a lot of issues for sure. So, hospital preparedness for emergencies. The Joint Commission requires that healthcare organizations have specific plans for emergency management, and then of course proper planning and preparation will lead to a successful emergency management. So planning is really the key ingredient for emergency management. A couple different ways that hospital prepares that I'm going to go over here over the next few slides. So lean management, which is something we're kind of seeing more of recently, is a small way to help prepare for emergencies. Lean management, it identifies what's normal and then will classify any deviations from that normal that could require a planned response. So this helps in the planning of emergency measures. And then evidence aid is something that provides immediate or time-sensitive evidence-based research and reviews for use in making well-informed decisions, kind of when preparing for and responding to natural disasters or other major healthcare emergencies. The all hazards approach, not necessarily what it sounds like. It doesn't really mean that every organization should prepare for every single disastrous event that's possible, because that's really not plausible. Instead, it really planning efforts should focus on the specific community's vulnerability, on what that community's vulnerability is to certain threats. So this is really determined through a risk analysis, and really preparing for one type of event can many times correlate to most others. And then surge capacity, it's really the ability for a hospital to handle a sudden and rapid influx in patient demands that's really seen in disasters. A surge system includes having enough supplies, personnel, physical space, and management infrastructure to meet the demand. So that's the staff, structure, and systems that we're talking about. The Emergency Operations Plan, or the EOP, is really the all-in-one in terms of preparing for emergencies. The EOP includes the preparation, education, training, and implementation of a hospital's response to emergency situations and disasters. The EOP includes the components activation response, communication plan, patient care coordination plan, security plan, traffic flow plan, data management strategy, and resources available. And then when it comes to implementing the EOP, there are three components of that, which is planning, preparing, and practicing. Planning involves really determining the top 3 to 5 vulnerabilities of that community based on its geographic location, and then planning the response accordingly. Planning the response based on the injuries that would most likely occur from that location. And then preparing, which is staff education and training. And finally, practicing, which involves testing the emergency operations plan twice a year. A Joint Commission requirement is to test the EOP at least twice a year. So that's the final implementation. Disaster triage. So usually hospitals triage by treating the most seriously injured person first. However, in disaster triage, they really need to prioritize the resources, those like the scarce resources that they have during disasters, to those that can benefit from them. So it's not necessarily treating the most seriously injured. It's the main goal is treating as many injured people as possible in the shortest amount of time possible. Also, during a disaster or emergency, everything tends to focus on just that, the disaster. However, the rest of the hospital and the rest of the patients are in need of care too. The hospital really needs to know how to handle interruptions of routine services or supplies, such as medication or food or water. And these vulnerabilities are identified through risk assessments. Staff utilization. It's important that staff is taken care of during emergencies so that patients can be taken care of properly. This includes having enough equipment, personal protective equipment, readily available, staff knows where it is, there's enough of it. And also, of course, education, training, practice drills can all help prepare staff for one if and when that time does come of a disaster. A callback system is also needed to have staff respond to an emergency situation. Now, the willingness of the staff, of course, can always be in question. That's really dependent on multiple factors. A couple being vulnerability of family, that staff's personal safety concerns, their past experiences with disasters, and then of course their desire just to help out. Appropriate management responses will lead to increased staff response. So developing a caring relationship, a compassionate response with staff will more than likely help them to want to help, as opposed to not want to come in and not want to come into work, despite those factors I mentioned before. Here's just the website, Lancaster General's disaster response page on their website. Just talks about their 4 levels of emergency management: planning, response, mitigation, and recovery. And then they have 3 different levels of response depending on casualties, and then how they respond to those different levels. short 2-minute video here about a hospital's training drills and some nursing students. So there's a real good way for nurses to get hands-on experience. So that's a good way to involve staff in emergency management and really get some hands-on experience. So some additional information is kind of focused on learning from past mistakes. So there was a study done by Kate Gossip and colleagues, which really indicated that many health departments do not often learn from past mistakes, either mistakes they've made themselves or mistakes from others. And then these same errors are repeated again and again. So by not learning from these past mistakes, those who plan to implement disaster efforts really won't be able to improve the understanding of the risks and then enhance future disaster response efforts. The study also found that this failure to learn from previous mistakes occurred during healthcare emergency responses of 3 separate hurricanes in North America from 2005 to 2008. So with the mistakes made with those hurricanes, even with the documentation of the problems that occurred, healthcare response procedures were not revised, which resulted in the same problems and same challenges during the H1N1 flu pandemic in 2009 to 2010. So it's just another way to, it kind of tells us that the failure to act on these problems that have been identified in the past can leave health systems, communities susceptible to the same problem in future events. So it's important to kind of learn from your mistakes and learn from the mistakes of others so that emergency management can go as smooth as possible during the situation. And then here are just some of my references. Thank you very much.